Hello everyone, I have a full pallet of stones, I have an empty tank and 100 pots of plants sponsored by Denali Plants. Welcome to the beautiful world of aquascaping. I'm gonna build a 120p layout today and I'm back at Stones. Huge surprise for everyone. This is not gonna be a crazy build. This is not gonna be a contest build. Actually, it's, if you remember the very first walk around tank in this showroom, the 90p, it was a Seiryuu mountain in the middle, very big carpet all around and just smaller type of stem plants on the top. Basically that's what I'm going to do today, obviously not in the middle because this is not a walk around tank, but the idea was to having this tank built by Victor and me, NA style, and more or less classic Iwagumi beside it. We went a bit too far with the crazy stuff in the showroom in the past few months, so now it's time for something more simple. And I'm back at Seiryuu stone because in the past few builds I've used Frodo stones. I love them, but it's time for a bit of a change. We have too much Frodo stones in the showroom anyway. And actually we have a very nice selection of Seiryuu stones at the moment, so it would make sense to build. I've pre-selected about 150 kilos of stones. You see 180 on the scale, that's the pallet and the frame already in it. So it's around 150, 155 kilograms to start with. Obviously, I'm not going to use all of them. As for the plants, green only. Everyone is building with red plants all around. This is going to be a green only tank. Actually, it's almost the very same selection of plants that I had in the walk around tank. Something new in the showroom will be Glossostigma, which we don't use too often. The main reason for it, it needs very often trimming compared to all the other carpeting plants. To make it perfectly nice, you need to trim it every week. That's how you create that very dense carpet, which we've actually seen in the ADA gallery in Japan. And ever since we've talked about recreating that type. So now is the time. I've made our maintenance team promise me that they're gonna trim it every week. So let's hope they really will. And they're gonna keep it in a nice shape. Other than that, we have some Eleucharis pusilla, some Staurogen, some Ricardia for the stones. Not sure if I'm going to use those, to be honest, but we'll see the end result. And I also have some potted plants which I don't want to dry up until I build the scape, so we're going to get back to them later on. And again, huge thanks to Denali Plants who sponsored us with these 100 pots for this build. Let's get to it. I'm going to use the ADA PowerSand M as the substrate, and then obviously lots of Amazonia. In this build I'm not going to make any sand pad in the middle, so that's why I spread the PowerSand all around. Usually we leave out the space for the sand pad, and just like the crazy stuff, we have sand pads in all of our tanks at the moment, so it will be a nice change. Obviously I'm keeping the front clear so we don't see the two layers. Is there any chance I'm gonna find the root sticks in here? This is something that was introduced with the Amazonia version 2, which we usually forget to put in our builds. Now I'm going to spread it around underneath the Amazonia so I don't have to worry about it later on. I'm surely going to use the 3 bags of Amazonia that's been opened for this. I think I'm going to use even more, but as for the root sticks, that's going to be enough. As usual, I'm going to start pouring it around the edges so we keep the substrate layer intact and safe from moving. So that's about 1.5 bags inside, just as a base layer to be able to start with the hardscaping. I just need it so the rocks are not standing on the glass directly. I'm going to start building up, and then obviously I'm going to fill in a lot more soil gradually for the build. let's try to find some nice stones.
Let's go to work, 'cause I'm tripping. Gotta work on myself, 'cause I'm falling apart. Please wake me up, 'cause I'm slipping. Can't fight this feeling off no more. But I'm not going to give up and fall. Rise above the door, meet all my challenges and search for my strength. I defeat them all. I'm never ever gonna hide no more.
Starting over, don't like it. My first idea was to build a wall and then fill up behind and build another wall and fill up. But with the depth of this tank and with the sizes of the stones I have, that doesn't really seem possible. So I'm gonna switch to building up a flat layer on the bottom and then filling and another flat layer and then filling, so it will be like these very thin rocks sticking out of the soil as we go up. Yeah, I need more, a lot more.
But I'm not going to give up and fall. Rise above it all. Beat all my challenges and search for my strength. I defeat a ball. I never ever gonna hide no more.
This is actually the kind of build that Balázs hates when I do this, because he thinks that every time a rock or wood piece is pointing at you outside the tank, it's aggressive. I don't know, but actually I like this a lot. My only concern at this moment is that this part is almost in the middle. It's a bit off the golden ratio, so I'm gonna have to balance that out with the size of the rocks as it builds up. I have to make sure that I'm gonna have some space for plants as well, because the rocks are touching each other too much.
When all I see is darkness and gloom, yeah, I've been running from my doom. Oh, la, na, 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 na. But now it's time to live my life, but now I know what I need to do.
Okay, so the hardscape is basically done. The whole staff of Green Aqua, one by one, came here and said either that they don't like it or that it's very similar to my previous work. So please let me know if you like it or not. We will go to planting now. Actually, there are these very small spots of soil where I can put plants. So I know it seems like a mess of stones, but actually there are areas where I can plant. I'm gonna have to be careful with the shadows. There's lots of them, so I have to make sure that I put plants that can thrive in shadows as well. Even though this looks like a landscape now, the final result will not really have the same effect, because I'm not going to bother with small plants in the back and so on. This is not about that. It's really just a simple Iwagumi. We're back from lunch. I've been fed, so I'm slow now. I don't want to do this. So yeah, I have 100 pots of plants to put in there. First of all, I have the Glossostigma. This is a carpeting plant we don't use too much, so it's going to be a nice addition for the lots of Monte Carlos and Araucaris carpets. This space is a bit empty, and Lori actually modified one of the stones for me. There was this bit sticking out here which was not needed, so let's see if it's... Problem is it takes up way too much space on the soil, so I won't have any place to plant. I think I'm gonna leave it like that. I'm gonna plant it, and later on, if we find some very thin piece that could go in there. At least Laurie was not just criticizing my work, but actually wanted to help. De jó vagy. Szóval meg vagyok szólva, hogy nem haladunk, érted? Na, ezt berakhatom, ezt a rajomba?
Mi arra várunk?
I got another stone from Laurie, so let's try again. It might be the same stone, modified again. It's good. That's a good piece, Laurie, thank you. I completely forgot how good it is to build simple aquariums. I don't have to worry if the plants will float or the hardscape will collapse, anything like that. So that's 30 pots of Glossostigma. Actually, at the end I was a bit afraid that it's not going to be enough, but it turned out perfect. Next up, I'm going to go to the higher places with the Eleucharis pusilla mini or Acicularis mini, or however you want to call it.
Was ready to rumble, was ready to fight, got lost in the thunder, without alibis, shout at the night, rage at the lies, don't let the fear control what's deep within, oh, oh, oh. Until the sky has fallen, I'll be around, I'll be there night and day, I'll be there both night and day.
So this is Staurogyne repens. It's fine for sort of shady areas. It doesn't like to be in full-on shade, but it doesn't need a lot of light. So what I do now is I give it 50-50 chance that very shadowy cave-like element. I'm not really sure if it's a good area for the Staurogyne or to die out. A very neat trick with Staurogyne repens is when it actually starts growing after about 2 weeks of introducing into the tank. If you trim it back, it's going to stay low, it's going to stay compact, and some people even make carpets out of it. We're going to trim it back quite soon and try to keep it as small bushes in these parts, which I'm not sure if it's going to work or not. I'm going to start planting the Graziola. This is a background plant. As always, it's quite small from the in vitro cup, but it's going to grow later on. I'm going to have two different types of background plants actually, the Graziola and the Myriophyllum guyana. Both these are regular stem plants, just like Rotala for example, but they're much slower growing. Because of that you can keep them quite small, so I obviously don't want 25-30 centimeter long background plants with this type of scape, so we're going to keep them about this high later on, which will be easy with these plants. So this is the Cryptocoryne parva, and this goes into the very shadowy part where you really think it should be fine. I've used this plant multiple times in basically no light environments, and well, it won't really grow, but it's gonna stay like it is, and that's perfectly fine for me. So now we measured the leftover stone, and it weighed 102 kilograms with the frame and the pallets. That means that's 78 kilos inside. It's not even that much as I usually use. So this is, you always ask how much hardscape we have. 78. Big. Yay! Haven't even started and I'm full of glue. I have the Riccardia patches here. Let's figure out where they go. Actually, I want to break up this big mass of stone and this one. This has the line for it. It's perfect. Probably this surface is too flat to keep. Here I can put on the edge. Also here on the very back side.
Until the sky has fallen.
done as well. So now what I figured is that I actually have some empty space in here in the back, and I have 2 of the Pusilla left. So I'm gonna plant it in this bit. That's it. The 100 pot Dennerle plant Iwagumi layout. I don't have anything to worry about. I'm not worried that hardscape is gonna collapse because everything is stable and everything is simple. I'm not sure what fish to choose, but you're gonna see it. Thanks for joining me. Please let me know if you like this, because our staff doesn't. And I need some hype for this tank. And see you next time. Goodbye.